Okay, hello everyone. This is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Usually the meetings are on Monday, but yesterday was a US holiday. The CircuitPython weekly meeting is the time of the week where we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. I'm Dan, and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. CircuitPython development is primarily sponsored by Adafruit. So if you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from adafruit.com. This meeting is hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join anytime by going to adafru.it/discord. We hold the meeting in the CircuitPython Dev text channel and the CircuitPython voice channel. This meeting typically happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. U.S. Pacific Time, except when it coincides with the U.S. holiday. In the notes doc, which I'll talk about, there's a link to a calendar you can view online or add to your favorite calendar app. We also send notifications about upcoming meetings via Discord. If you would like to receive these notifications, ask us to add you to the @CircuitPythonistas Discord role. So as I mentioned, there's a shared notes document, that's a Google Doc right now, that accompanies the meeting and recording. You can contribute to the document beforehand. The final notes document includes timestamps to go along with the video, so you can use the doc to skip around and view the parts of the video that interest you most. The meeting tends to run 30 to 60 minutes. After each meeting, we post a link for the next meeting's notes document to the CircuitPython Dev channel on the Adafruit Discord. Check the pinned messages to find the latest notes doc so you can add your notes for the following meeting. If you wish to participate but cannot attend, you can leave hug reports and status updates in the document for us to read during the meeting. So I'll mention this meeting is held in 5 parts. I'll discuss each part as we get to them. So I'll take a timestamp for the first part, which is community news. Community news is a look at all things CircuitPython and Python on hardware in the community. And it comes from the our weekly Python for Microcontrollers newsletter, which goes out on Mondays. So I'll tell you more about that at the end. So first item, there's a survey, a monthly survey called the Tiobe Survey, which rates popularity of programming languages. And the latest report says the world's most popular programming language, that's Python, is losing market share to more specialized languages such as R and Perl. Python still holds the top ranking, and it leads by more than 10 percentage points over C, which is in second place. But Python's lead has actually declined over the past 6 months from a high market share of about 27% to about 22%. And I have a screenshot from that, the graph, which is kind of interesting, which I'll paste in here. So Python is the one that rises quickly in 2024 and then is slightly sinking. So, and it's not really clear what the error bars are in this. So take it a bit with a grain of salt. But you could also see that Python might have gotten really popular when all the AI stuff started happening, and there's a steep rise. So we'll see what happens in the future. Anyway, there are several links to this poll in the newsletter. The next item is 2 items about alternative implementations of Python. One is called Rust Python, which actually has been around for several years, and I think it's still being worked on, but it's not that well known. It's a Python 3 interpreter written in Rust. There's a GitHub repository for it. And then the other newer implementation of Python written in Rust is called Monty, as in Monty Python, which is a new minimal secure Python interpreter, which has very minimal features, and it's meant for use by an AI agent to try to protect you against bad things being done by the AI agent. And there's an interesting discussion of Monty versus Rust Python in an issue in the GitHub for Monty. So take a look at that. It's kind of interesting. And I'm not sure, I think it remains to be seen whether what Monty, what the goals of Monty are, how they're satisfied, and whether Rust Python could actually satisfy them when run in a secure environment. So as I mentioned, these items come from the Python and Microcontrollers Weekly Newsletter. It goes out on Mondays. You can subscribe to it by visiting adafruitdaily.com. Thanks to Anne for putting the newsletter together every week. If you have any Python and hardware projects to share or find content you'd like to see included, please consider contributing to the newsletter. Email cpnews@adafruit.com with a link to the content. Some items I did not include have to do with tiny AI agents that can run on microcontrollers. One of them was actually not implemented in Python, and the other one is maybe of some interest, but take a look at the newsletter if you want to look at those items as well. All right, so let's move on to the next major section, which is the state of CircuitPython libraries and Blinka. This is a quantitative overview of the entire project. It gives us a chance to look at the health of the project separate from our status updates. We'll talk about the project overall and then separately discuss the CircuitPython core, the libraries, and Blinka. So first up, overall, in the past week, we had 17 pull requests merged by 10 authors. Weblate bbrad2365, who is new to me, Arifpedia, also new to me, BlitzCity DIY, Copilot, Tyeth, me, Relic, SE, Deshipu, and Mikhail Kususa. There were 7 reviewers. There were 7 issues closed by 4 people and 10 opened by 8 people. And next up is the core. And if Scott, would you be able to talk about the core?
Yeah, so for the core, we had 6 pull requests merged from 4 different authors. RFpedia is new, along with Deshipu and Dan, and Weblate. So thank you to those 4. We had 2 reviewers, Dan and myself. We are currently over our one-page goal of 25 pull requests. So we have 27 right now. I'm sure we'll get under that imminently as well. So we're right around our one-page pull request goal. Issues-wise, we had 1 closed issue by 1 person, 5 opened by 5 people. We're up 4. I suspect Dan's going to close a number of those soon. If we have a total of 841 open issues. You can go to github.com/adafruit/circuitpython/issues for that. And then we track our prioritization for milestones, or for prioritization of issues via milestones, for Adafruit-funded folks at least. We have 0 issues not assigned to milestones, so we are keeping up on triage. We have 18 support that could likely be closed. And then we have 10XX has 108 open issues. I don't see 10.1X, but I think 10.1 regular probably was closed because it was released. So we probably need to add a new milestone there for follow-up with 10.1. I know we're already going to do a 10.1.1, so that's the sort of thing we'll put there. But generally, yeah, we're keeping up with issues on the core side. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Scott. Okay, next up, we could have Phony Guy talk about the libraries.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. This section covers all the CircuitPython libraries, which are published to GitHub. They are published under 2 different bundles there on GitHub. We have the Adafruit library bundle. Right now, that one has 382 libraries in it. And we have a community library bundle where folks from the community are allowed and encouraged to publish libraries for themselves. There are 172 of those right now, for a total of 554 libraries right now that support CircuitPython. For the Adafruit bundle, which is where the rest of these stats apply, we had 7 pull requests merged this week by 5 different authors, thanks to Relic SC, Michael Pokusa, Liz, Tyeth, and looks like we also got some help from Copilot this week. For for reviewers. We had 5 reviewers. Thanks to Brent, Lady Ada, Scott, Liz, and myself for doing some reviews this week. In terms of the pull request merge, the oldest one was 29 days, and the newest one was only 1 day old, down in the SGP41 library, which is also a new library that was added to the bundle this week. We have remaining 39 pull requests open. The oldest one is a draft that is 1,279 days. The newest one is 1 day. Let's see, issues-wise, we had 4 closed issues by 1 person. We had 4 opened issues by 4 people, and that leaves us right now across the Adafruit bundle with 771 open issues, and there is one of them currently that is labeled as a good first issue. You can find that one and all the rest listed at circuitpython.org/contributing, which is the website where you should head if you are interested in getting involved in the CircuitPython project. One of the first places we tend to point folks towards when they want to get involved but don't necessarily have a specific thing in mind they want to do is reviewing PRs, which you can do from that page. Again, circuitpython.org/contributing. When it first loads, you'll see a list of the open PRs. Those are going to be links to GitHub. You can click through that link and take a look at a proposed change that someone has submitted for the library. And if you would like to get involved, you can look over that change, take a look at the code for spelling, syntax, logic, anything like that. If you have the hardware for whatever library it is, and you can actually test out the proposed change, that's even better. You can leave a comment there on GitHub letting us know what you found when you looked over the code. If you were able to test it out on hardware, you can also include in your comment what you found when you did that. Did it work for you? Did you have trouble? What version of CircuitPython did you use? What device did you use? All that sort of stuff. And again, you can just include that in your comment on GitHub. If you get comfortable with that process and you like doing it, if you like to get leveled up to join the official review team that we have there on GitHub, we can work with you to add you to that. If you would like to start submitting some of your own code to CircuitPython and the surrounding libraries, you can also do that from the contributing page. If you click over to the issues link at the top, you will see a similar looking page visually. It's a big list of links over to GitHub, but these ones represent issues. They do not have a proposed change yet. They're waiting for a person who is interested and motivated to submit whatever change it may be. That could be fixing a bug, adding a new feature or enhancement, maybe adding an example or something like that. So if you would like to do that, you can click through, read about what the issue is, and then submit a PR with a solution. We do have a Learn Guide for contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub. We also have folks who are more than happy to help out here on the Discord. So if you are having trouble with any part of the process reviewing or trying to submit your own PRs or having trouble with actions or pre-commit or anything like that, come say hi on the Discord. Let us know what you're up to and what issues that you are having with it. We would be happy to help you out. Let's see here. Lost my spot. There we are. Okay, so yeah, new libraries, like I mentioned, SGP41, and then updated library this week was Template Engine and HTTP Server as well. Got some improvements, but it's not listed here. And that is what we have for libraries. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Tim. Okay, next up, you've got Blinka, which is our compatibility layer for CircuitPython that runs on single board computers like Raspberry Pi. I don't mean Raspberry Pi Pico, I mean Linux machines and the like. And so what Blinka does is it lets you run CircuitPython code under regular Python. It emulates features of CircuitPython in regular Python, like controlling pins and doing I2C and things like that. So in the past week, there were 4 pull requests merged for Blinka by 2 authors and with 2 reviewers. There are now 16 open pull requests. There were 2 issues closed by 2 people, 1 opened by 1 person, and there are 146 open issues now, and there are 166 supported Blinka boards right now. And that is it for Hug Reports. Next up, our next major section is status updates. It's our time to tell folks what we're up to as individuals. I'll start, and then we'll go through the rest of the list. When I call on you, you can take a couple of minutes to talk about what you've been doing since the last meeting and maybe what you plan to be doing until the next meeting. And if anything gets into a longer discussion, we can move that to the In the Weeds section. So with me starting, I'll say I have 2 hug reports. Thanks to Daniel Olson, who found and diagnosed a severe slowdown in CircuitPython 10.1.0, the RC0, and later. And I will talk about that in more details later. And also a big thanks to RFpedia, who greatly expanded the Indonesian translation, and it's basically complete right now, which is fantastic. It's another language that basically has a complete translation. You can look at there are bar graphs in the translation pull requests which show the completion of each language. So thanks very much, RFpedia. All right, next up is Tim.
All right. Thank you, Dan. I have hug reports this week thanks to Dan Cogliano, who shared some neat FruitJam OS screensavers recently on Show and Tell. Those are also on the Playground system if you want to find them there on the Learn site. Thanks also to Relic SE, who created the FruitJam library, which allows you to kind of download other apps, including those screensavers, which are now listed there in the library. You can kind of browse through different things and choose which ones you want to install, so you can get not only those screensavers, but lots of other stuff. And I do have one more also to Relic SE for submitting some improvements to the Blinka Display.io Pygame library that I have. I need to check into those, but I appreciate the improvements being submitted there. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Tim. All right, next up, I'll read Liz's notes. Thanks to Tim for helping out with a CI issue with the CircuitPython bundle repo. And next up, we've got Scott Tannute.
Hello. Again, thanks to Daniel and Dan for fixing the port yield issue on Espressif. I just said this bug is a +1 for hardware in the loop testing, which could have found this.
All right, thanks, Scott. Yeah, it was interesting. I did some smoke tests, and because even though the bug that it was really slow, it did pass like a smoke test, and but a better test that tested performance would have helped also. All right, next up, I'll read Tetric's contribution. Thanks to Jake1164 for their patience and work on updating Adafruit/build MPY to use precompiled versions of MPY cross. Thanks to Scott for doing a lot of legwork with Zephyr. I found getting the native symport compiled relatively painless, even doing it in Docker. Thanks to Scott again for prototyping the infrastructure for running Zephyr and GitHub Actions so I can ditch Docker and a group hug. And that is it for hug reports. So now we'll move on to status updates. It's our time to tell folks what we're up to individually. As we did with hug reports, I'll start, then we'll go through everybody in the list one by one. And I think I read the hug report. I read the status update. What happens to status updates for hug reports, because it sounds too familiar. So again, tell us what you've done and tell us what you've been doing, and we can always move a discussion to in the weeds. All right. So I'll start. So as we discussed, I released 10.1.0, which had this bug that Daniel Olson had found, which was discovered kind of after I did the release. So that I released it yesterday, so I just pulled the release because it was only out for like an hour or two. So I just removed it from CircuitPython.org and removed it from the AWS S3 buckets, and it's gone now. And I took away the release announcements. So I plan to release 10.1.1 today, which has a fix for the performance problem. It's not the first time that we've had a release which we replaced immediately for one reason or another. I worked over the weekend on fixing some things about getting values from settings.toml. os.getenv was traditionally used for retrieving those values. It would sometimes return the value as a typed object and not just as a string, which actually is incompatible with what CPython does. Fortunately, no one actually seems to do that very much. So this PR makes os.getenv to always return a string, And then the idea is that there's a new function called supervisor.getSetting, which retrieves the typed values. And Scott has some discussion about maybe we should use a standard TOML interface instead, and he and I will discuss that. But the basic idea here was actually partly because we had a number of PRs, or not PRs, but issues where people wanted to say turn things on and off by setting a flag in settings.toml, and we didn't have support for bools. We just had integers and strings. And so since TOML does have support for bools, part of the reason that I did this PR was to add support for bools. And so in any case, that will be helpful to deal with future issues. All right. And then another thing that I've worked on, which has not been much work at all, is updating from GCC 14 to GCC 15. The ARM organization released their version of the ARM tool chain with GCC 15 in late December. And it noticeably, for builds that are optimized for size, it does a nice job of gaining some space. Like even on the smallest builds, it looks like we're gaining like 500 or 1,000 bytes, which we can always use on the smallest builds. All right, and next up is Tim.
All right. I finished up the TinyWiki CircuitPython port this week. For that one runs on the Fruit Jam. The guide is submitted, so that should be coming out sometime this week. I have been working on creating a new Play Store, Android Play Store listing for the Bluefruit Connect app. I updated the app last week and the week before to the latest versions of Android SDK, and we are working on a new store listing for that. So I've been going through the submission process for it. And then the other thing that I'm starting up, the new project essentially that I'm working on next, is this looking into this Moonshine Voice project, which is another speech-to-text engine, sort of like Whisper, but this one is sort of built around streaming audio, optimized for streaming audio, either coming from a live microphone or I think possibly streaming through a network or something like that. Whereas Whisper is more like long form, you can run it on an audio file and it takes several seconds. This one is meant to be more real time. It's not quite as accurate, but it is meant to get you a best guess as quick as it can. So it's pretty cool. And I have been starting to build out a basic project with it, which is going to be a NeoPixel voice control. So you can ask it to set the colors, or maybe we'll put in like a disco mode or something to run some animations as well, I think. So that is what I am up to. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Tim. All right, next up is Scott.
All right, so I'm trying to focus on the Zephyr BLE PR. It's got a major fix for the Zephyr stuff, handling memory regions. And so I'm really trying to push on that. I wasn't happy with how codecs hooked into the serial outputs of the emulator, so I was redoing that. I think it'll be quick to update the tests once I've gotten it to where I want it. I'm also planning on doing a lot more kind of in this vein by adding more BLE.io stuff, so I want to get it where I want it now so that when I add more features, like all the tests mirror the way that I want to do it. So that's my main goal, and then I'm poking the displays stuff on the side. I actually was thinking over the weekend, I decided to just throw away what I'd done last week and try it again this week, and it looks like it made it further, which is exciting. But that'll also come after the BLE PR. So the meeting, I'm going to focus on the BLE stuff and try to get that out today or tomorrow, ideally, because it's been a while since I've gotten stuff in. So the GPIO input stuff that I was talking about before is also blocked on this BLE PR. I think because of this memory thing, it's just like hampered all of my other side quests with Zephyr. So trying to focus on BLE and trying to get better about finishing stuff instead of just spawning off more and more things, which is so easy to do with agents.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Okay. And finally, I will read Tektra's contribution. First, updating CircuitFirm to better upload tests to CodeCov and to also more intelligently pick with CIs to run based on changes. So CircuitFirm is a tool that Tektra wrote that it lets you easily update CircuitPython firmware on your board. It identifies the board when it's running CircuitPython and then decides what to download based on the version you specify. And then you put the board into bootloader mode and it copies the firmware to the board. It's very convenient. I use it all the time. I really appreciate it. Also updated CircuitFirm, he says, to allow use of command line text editors for configuration settings. Next, reviewed and merged a PR in Adafruit build MPY, a way to package user projects by compiling to .mpy and creating zip files for distribution. And finally, started looking at the Zephyr work Scott has been working on. I'll be starting some prototype CI work to measure the effects of importing the libraries there over the next few weeks. And that is it for status updates. Finally, we have the In the Weeds section, which is where we have some more extended discussions about whatever. There's one item here this week from Tetrick. And I'll read it and maybe give a little background on it. Tetrick says, how would folks want or expect the memory import check to work? I think the idea of this is for a library, you would it has a number of prerequisites, and it has its own size. And when you import it, you want to know how big is it? Is it going to fit or not? Maybe has it grown a lot, for instance, because of changes? So that's what the memory check is meant to do, and it would run during the CI, during the PR as a check. So Tektrick says it would run similar to PyTest in that it would run specific test code files automatically and simply provide change in memory after importing the library within GitHub Actions in case it was helpful, e.g. when reviewing a PR that refactors the library. This means it would only run for libraries where memory is a concern, like large libraries or libraries designed for memory-constrained devices. And it would be nice to have a point at which it comments on PRs if the memory changes by like at least X% in a PR, similar to the existing CI failure action that's used. And there's a link to what he means. And he says, I don't know what the percentage X is or if it would just clutter PRs. So that's interesting. I would say that MicroPython has a size thing which says how big MicroPython grew or not based on a PR, like what is the change in the firmware size. But we don't have such a thing. I have not seen such a thing for libraries that compile to MPYs. So does anybody have any comment on this? And whatever you say, but I'm sure Tetrick will listen to this and take note.
I think it's a little tricky. I guess I'm leaning towards just doing it on every PR, where you can say like plus or minus, because the problem is if you have a threshold that you could do like 10 PRs that do 1% increases, and now you've like grown a lot more than just 1%. But I agree that also like a lot of these automated things are quite noisy.
Yeah.
So I'm torn.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on who's reading the notifications. Like I subscribe to everything in the Adafruit repo, but that means that I hit the delete key really fast a lot sometimes in my mail program. And I think also just knowing the absolute size is kind of like, oh, that is kind of big or not. So
I was just going to say that too, because I think maybe the way to phrase it is like if it's based on absolute size, we could set some expected heap sizes for things. So like in the message, we could say, hey, we don't think this will fit on this AMD21, right? Like yeah. We could give more information about like what the impact of the size is.
Right. And if it was small, then we wouldn't care or something. Or And I guess you could also say, like, I guess you could put flags in that say, well, this library is never going to run on a small board, so don't bother to report that. That would maybe be a threshold, a
Yeah.
way to about a threshold. So,
So I think what I'm saying is like I think we should run it everywhere, but we should be thoughtful about what the message is,
right.
so that it's like describes the impact of what you're doing. We also do want to, and I'm not sure how we would do this, but we would also want to account for dependencies of things, right? Like if you are a library that imports two other libraries, how do you separate out the like size impacts of those two things
Yeah,
as well?
yeah. I think this is also a general problem with GitHub and automation.
Yes, and I'm hoping they're going to get better about it. Like
Yeah,
they need a way of splitting off the bots from the humans.
right. Or I could see, like, like many mailing lists I subscribe to do daily summaries or something. Like it might make more sense to give to group a set of comments for the day, or for, if they happen all within a period of a few hours or something like that. I think that is partly GitHub's responsibility to figure out how to make people's work lives easier.
Right.
So anyway, Tetrick, take this for what it is, and we're happy to talk about it in other places. Like if you wanted to open, probably this code is going to be shared somewhere, so you could open an issue in the one of the library helper repos or something like that. I mean, there are tooling repos that maybe is a place to discuss this as well. Okay, so that's it. I believe, if nobody has anything else, let me just wrap up here. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Thanks to everybody who participated. If you want to support CircuitPython Adafruit, and those of us that work on CircuitPython, consider purchasing stuff from the Adafruit shop at adafruit.com. The video of this meeting will be released on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit, and the podcast will be available on major podcast services. There'll also be a pointer to it in the weekly Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. Remember to visit adafruitdaily.com to subscribe. So next week is going to be normal. The next evening will be on Monday, February 23rd, at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. U.S. Pacific Time. And that is it. And thanks, everybody. And I'll stop recording.